Dad's new girlfriend kicked me out because I called her trash. I'm 17, and my mom was everything to me. We used to do all sorts of cool stuff together, reading books, watching documentaries, going on road trips. She'd bake cookies when my sister and I were sick, and our whole family would go hiking every other week. I still miss her a lot. When I was 11, she passed away in a car accident, and it's been tough ever since. 2 years later, my dad started dating a lady named Nicole, and now, after 4 years, they're getting married. Nicole is younger than my dad. After they got together, things changed. My dad became all adventurous with her, going on fancy trips and having lots of night outs. But I started feeling left out. Our weekly hikes turned into a thing of the past. He talked to us less, and he even forgot my mom's birthday once. It felt like my dad was slipping away. One time, my sister fell down the stairs when we were home alone, and she needed stitches. I called my dad, but Nicole answered and said he was busy. She wouldn't give him the phone, and I had to ask a neighbor to take us to urgent care. Another time, I caught her replacing my mom's picture with one of her and my dad from their trip. The breaking point for me was when they missed our yearly trip to visit my mom's grave because of some Florida trip Nicole wanted. My dad decided to break the drive into small parts for her, and we missed our tradition. I got really mad when my dad told us about Nicole being pregnant, and I said some pretty mean things. Now, I'm at my grandparents' place, and it's been 2 days. I feel kinda bad for what I said, but I don't regret it that much. Am I in the wrong here? Edit. When my sister got hurt, I called my dad, but Nicole answered. She wouldn't pass the phone, saying he was busy, and then she hung up. That's when I had to go get my neighbor for help. Update 1, 2 days later. Subscribe for more Reddit stories. I called my grandpa early in the morning while everyone was still asleep, and we ended up talking for 2 whole hours. I told him everything I've shared here, how I really want to live with him if I can. He said he wishes he could help, but he can't do much without my dad's okay. I suggested maybe going the legal way, but he said he wouldn't be able to see us if it got that serious. Then, my grandpa told me something new about my dad. When I was 14 and my sister was 10, my dad dropped us off at my grandpa's farm because he and Nicole were going on a trip. A day after they came back, my grandpa brought us home. We were still sleeping in his car when all this happened. When my grandpa knocked on the door, my dad opened it, super drunk. The house was a big mess, and my grandpa could only see a little bit. He told my dad he'd bring us back the next day when he was feeling better. So, we went back to Grandpa's place, but, the next morning, my grandpa got a call from my dad, and he was really mad. He threatened my grandpa with the police if he didn't bring us back right away. My grandpa said he's going to talk to my other grandparents to see if they can help us out of this tricky situation. Things are getting kind of complicated. Update 2, 5 weeks from last update. Hey everyone, it's been a bit, and I really want to thank you all for your advice and thoughts. Just wanted to share what's been happening lately. About Thanksgiving dinner, when my dad and Nicole showed up, I asked if I could talk to both of them. My dad didn't want to talk and went to the living room. Nicole stayed by the front door, so I said sorry for what I said to her. She said she needed to leave and went to the living room too. She still seemed mad at me. Dinner was awkward because my grandma tried to get my dad and me to talk, but he didn't really bother. After dinner, I said sorry to him again, but he ignored me and went straight to Nicole. I wasn't sure if I was going back with him or not, so I packed, just in case. When he was leaving, I asked if I could come back home. He said Nicole wasn't okay with that, even though it had been a few days since the argument. I spent the whole night crying on the phone with my sister, now, about therapy and where I'm staying. After talking to my maternal grandpa, he called my other grandparents a couple of days later to talk about me. I overheard their conversation. My grandpa was worried about me, especially my feelings, and he asked my other grandparents if they'd talked to my dad about me going to therapy. They suggested their church's mental support group or talking to their faith leader who knows about grief counseling. My grandpa wanted more professional help, but they didn't like the idea. They also argued about where I should live. My grandpa said it was silly for a grown man to kick out his daughter, and he was upset that my other grandparents weren't pushing harder to help me go back home. That's all I heard from their talk. Now, my grandma takes me to see the faith leader every week. I'm not super happy with it, but it's helping me deal with my feelings better. I'm still living with my grandparents. I said sorry so many times through text and my grandparents, but my dad hasn't replied. My grandpa called him a lot, but my dad blocked him. I'm thinking about telling my school counselor everything next semester and not leaving anything out to protect my dad. Also, I wasn't invited to my dad and Nicole's Christmas dinner, which hurt. But now, I'm starting not to care so much about having a relationship with my dad. It's kind of twisted, but not going back home with him has given me space to focus on myself. Update 3, 2 months from last update. Hey, I wasn't sure if I could add more to my old post, but I really wanted to share what's going on. Right now, everything is all mixed up, so I'll try my best to make sense of it. I made a kind of silly mistake. After scheduling a meeting with my counselor, I told my sister about it on the phone. I didn't say I was reporting Dad, but she freaked out and said it wasn't a good idea. She cried and told me I'd hurt our dad if I reported him. I said I wouldn't go to the meeting to help her feel better, but secretly, I still planned on going. I set the meeting for the second week of January while Dad was in California. The night before the meeting, Dad called me. He said if I ever wanted to live with him again, I shouldn't tell lies about him to the counselor. I said I'd never do that, and that was the end of the call. It was the first time I talked to him in days, and I never said I was reporting him. I figured out my sister must have spilled the beans, so I called her to talk. I asked her why she told him, and she said he called her and asked what I was up to. She slipped up and told him about the counselor meeting. Still, I went to the counselor and spilled everything. I asked him not to tell Dad about the meeting, and he agreed. At the end, he gave me some pamphlets for mental health support, but he didn't really answer my questions about what happens next. A day later, my grandpa, Dad's dad, called me and said we needed to talk. He got mad and yelled at me, saying they'd take my sister and the baby away if I kept this up. He said I wasn't raised to lie and grounded me, so no driving or hanging out with friends for a couple of weeks. I don't really know what happened in the meeting between the counselor and Dad. From the call between my grandpa and Dad, I found out there was a police officer there, and they're doing a wellness check. Dad denied everything I told the counselor and said I was just being mean because I lost my mom. I wasn't feeling good after that, and I still don't. I call my friend a lot and ask her to stay on the phone with me, or I just stay in my room. Also, my grandma stopped taking me to the faith leader as punishment, so that's where I am now.